Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to Ashley Barber, who posted a really quite introspective and for herself transformation, but I also think it could be transformational for other people post recently about how she is now dry and in AA and going through a whole process. And so I thought that it would be interesting, given that the new year is upon us and people are setting resolutions and thinking about their future self, that it would be helpful to check in with Ashley and find out what's going on. And so Ashley, welcome to our show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm hoping, to be able to help some people. And like you said, New Year's is upon us, which is sometimes a very, it shakes some people up, gets some people back out if they're in recovery. So it's a good time to talk about things like that.
So tell me a little bit about what happened. So you say that some bad stuff happened and that you were actually forced into rehab, but that was actually in the end really good for you. Is that fair?
Yes. So I've had clean time before, but of course I did not, stay into recovery. And this past time recently that had happened, I was very going through what you would call a binge, right? So what a binge looks like is multiple days or even weeks of recurring events that you are, going out and staying out for multiple days, drinking for multiple days, doing things that are unhealthy for yourself, maybe putting yourself around unhealthy people, those types of things. So I had since, been in a very toxic relationship. I was getting very sick, losing a lot of weight because of stress and anxiety, because of, being in that toxic relationship. And, within that toxic relationship, I had since found out of, cheating and stuff like that. So there's a lot of depression that was going on for me. And I was on a binge drinking, and I ended up in front of my, ex-significant's house. And I was completely suicidal at that point in time because my mind was not where it's supposed to be, right? Because when I'm sober, I don't want to harm myself and I don't want to die and I don't want to leave this earth. But with drinking so much for multiple days and amongst other things, my brain was completely shot from using so much. So I became to, being suicidal at that time. And then the police ended up getting involved and I ended up getting tased, which is not a good feeling. And I was arrested and instead of being put into a mental health situation setting, right, the police had since put me into jail. So I was on a 24-hour lockdown for 8 days. And my mother had arranged with the judge to, instead of going after me for a crime, which I did not really commit, but it was a mental health issue. They wanted me to go to a program. So when I went to this program, I spent almost 30 days in BHOP, which is Behavioral Health of the Palm Beaches. Extremely a very helpful place. So what that looks like is you have a lot of therapy. You're constantly, locked down in this setting of, this was a hotel that they had since renovated and turned into a rehabilitation center. So, we would go to groups during the day, therapy, once or twice a week. They had equine therapy. We had volleyball. We had activities that we did as well. So I did get a lot of help there and did a really intense therapy called Emdr, which helps individuals with trauma therapy, right? So what that looks like as well is, it brings you back to that traumatic moment to desensitize that situation so it no longer affects you. So I since have completed that program and
Sorry, what is EMDR?
So EMDR is a psychosocial therapy. It's a desensitizing trauma therapy.
Okay. And whatever it is, it what helps you realize what the trauma was and get through it?
So let's say like if an individual has flashbacks or they can't get over something that happens to them, something traumatic in the event, it makes you go back to that situation, and you go through a sense of hypnotism, right? So you focus on a subject or how you were feeling in that moment to desensitize it so it no longer affects you or no longer comes to mind when you're on your own.
Okay. And so you were there for how long? 20 something days?
Yeah, about 27 days.
And then you've come out, and how have you been since have you left the rehab?
I've been great. So I choose, there was a point where I could have gone back home, but there is another program that they have available, which is called PHP, which is half hospitalization, where you go to clinical during the week, Monday through Friday, from like 10 in the morning till about 3:30, and you get therapy in groups still. So I've chosen to continue my care, get a little bit more therapy, and just work on myself a little bit more. So I'll be here for about two more weeks or so, and then be going back to my home.
Well, excellent. And so are you clean?
I am clean. I've never felt better. I have 40 days clean today. So that is a refreshing feeling, to be back on track, feeling clear-minded, sense of self. So I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
Well, Ashley, congratulations. And it
Thank
sounds
you.
like a great story. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Ashley in just a minute. Stay with us.
Hello, my name's Ashley.
Well, we're back with Ashley. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing what must be a difficult story to tell. But I think it might be helpful to other people that hear it. How'd you get into alcohol and drug use?
So when I was young, it usually starts with being around other individuals who are usually using and drinking, amongst other things. So when I was 13, I got introduced to marijuana, alcohol, and that's where it kind of started for me. So within that journey, it kind of, escalated through time. I got into high school. That's where, house parties started to happen, more drinking, more experimenting, with those types of, things. And then as life went on, it just became a problem. So I was continuously drinking, out all the time, going places. Eventually I turned 21, of course, and then it was, off, from there. So alcohol has been a huge part of my life, and just has been constant for me for a very long time.
And you said you've been dry before. So have you gone through times where you tried to get clean previously, and what happened? Why didn't it work?
So I first became introduced to the programs and recovery after my significant other had passed away. He committed suicide in front of me, so that was a very hard time for me, and I got thrown into recovery because I was, not in my right mind. And I've gone to rehabs a couple of times, and the reason why it didn't work for me then, is because I didn't stay stuck. So what that means is I didn't, stay with a sponsor, right? Because they tell you to get a sponsor. That sponsor either left me or I left them. And then I didn't follow through with the steps, with this 12-step traditions that we have to work with. So I was always 1 foot in and 1 foot out, which you have to be all the way in and stay with a sponsor, which I have now, and working the steps, which I'm doing now. So it's a totally different side of things.
So is rehab an important step for people, or can you do it on your own?
So I feel that rehab is extremely important, right? Because it really depends. It starts off with what is an individual using. So if an individual is using heroin, um, any type of opioid, benzos, which is like Xanax, alcohol, are very hard things to come off. For example, you cannot, people usually cannot come off of Xanax and alcohol by themselves because it's the two most deadly things to come off of. So that's why they have what's called detox for us, so that you can go and they can slowly give you a regimen of medications and taper you down from those two things safely. And heroin also, is a very uncomfortable detox that's very hard to do on your own. So what they suggest, obviously, is that you go through detox for 7 days. And then, there's a part that you have to look at, that anybody has to look at when they're a addict or alcoholic, because we need to figure out the reasons on why we use, right? So there is a reason every time that an individual uses, because we have a choice, but then there stems from like things that may cause you depression or anxiety, or feeling less than. So it's important to really look at those things. And, that comes from maybe being abandoned as a child, being neglected, having, being sexually assaulted in some way or another. And those things we carry with us all the time. So
did any of those things happen to you, or if you feel
Yes.
comfortable telling me?
Yeah, sure. So when I was a child, I had come in contact with with groping by my dad. Excuse me. So that was where everything kind of started off for me. My dad threw $20 in the back of my mom's car and went and married another woman and left us. So that was abandonment, right? And then when I kind of got around drugs and cocaine, for instance, my cocaine dealer at the time locked me and my friends in a room and he molested me. So that was an uncomfortable situation. And, I've been raped before, like a lot of women probably have. And that's a really hard subject as well, but it happens and it's something to be aware of. And, I've been abused by boyfriends, in my life. I've been kidnapped from Hard Rock Casino in 2011, and I survived that. And then my boyfriend, obviously committed suicide. So that was very traumatic. So I've gone through, a lot.
God, you've gone through a ton. I can't believe it all.
Yeah. So just kind of going back to what the next step looks like after detox, which is called residential. So residential is for you to come and be around so people who are in sobriety and start getting therapy for trauma like that, right? So that's where you get with therapists and you start learning about about addiction and what that looks like and what that is for you and how it affects you mentally, physically, and spiritually. So usually they have individuals stay in that type of setting for about 30 days. And then you go into PHP, which is where I am now. And then IOP and OP, which is inpatient but outpatient. And the PHP levels where you do about a month. And then IOP is where you go 3 times a day during the week, and then you start looking for a job if you don't have a job, or go back to your life and work and still get knowledge about the addiction. And then OP is 2 times a week, and then you graduate. So that's what it is.
And why do you think this time's going to be different than the times before, that you went to rehab and you were clean, but then you weren't committed and it didn't work out long term?
So for me this time, right, we have what we call a rock bottom. So I have had many bottoms before, and but they weren't as deep and far as I dug myself into this time. So being suicidal on my birthday, feeling like I was alone and by myself, which is very selfish in a way, right? Because I have 2 children. I'm a mom as well. My children are 3 and 6 years old. So that's how you can really tell the distorted thinking is when you're using drugs and drinking, because in my right state of mind, I would never think about ever leaving my children. So being that sad and in such a dark place, and being in that toxic relationship and having my ex-boyfriend set me up with the police and stuff, that was just like the ultimate rock bottom. And something that I had to get real with myself is that, I understand that I'm done this time, right? Because I understand that drinking is something that changes me, right? Because we have an allergy and I have an allergy. So every time that I drink, I change. I become agitated. My PTSD comes out and shows. I get very protective, very stimulated with, with people around me. It's just, it's a very uncomfortable antisocial feeling. So I understand now that every time I drink will always change me. Every time I drink will always lead to something else, like extracurricular activities, like other drugs, or also alcohol leads me into being in places I don't need to be in, whether that's in like, a dangerous situation around people that I don't need to be around. So I understand that it's always going to lead me there. And I also study the AA book 100%. I read it every single day and outline everything that sticks out to me. I'm in the 200s right now as I read the book, and the pages like 500 or 600. So educating myself about addiction, right, and giving myself knowledge about what I have a problem with. Everything in that book is me. All the issues that they talk about that happens. Addiction has affected my job, my family, my friends, my children, and my loved ones. How it affects my job is like, maybe I go out and drink and go on a bender, or I drink too much and I can't come into work the next day, or I come into work completely hungover and I can't function at my best, right? So there's days where like I can make tons of money during the day, or else there's days where I hardly make any money because I can't function. And then with my family, how it affects me is I get very agitated with them trying to, say that I have a problem, or I'm not acting normal, I don't look normal. Those types of things happen. And then what I do when I drink a lot, or when I'm going through stuff and I'm very depressed because I'm drinking all the time, my dopamine, serotonin is down. Are you still there? Sorry.
Yep.
But when I get depressed and I drink, I isolate. So I'll isolate from my children and my mother and my family, because I don't want them to see me upset or, not in the sound mind. And then with my friends, how it affects my friends is, I might be drinking with my friends and then we get into arguments, or we get into fights, or like, something might come up where it's just, we're just not okay together. And that's an issue. And then family members, after you're using and they know you're using and they know that you're going through all this stuff, that affects them. They're worried about you. They can't sleep at night. They don't know if they're going to get a call, like that something has happened to you. So that's how it all affects you, on all those levels. And that's how it's affected me.
This 12-step program, what step in the 12 steps are you through?
So the first step is powerlessness, right? So I've done the steps for AA, which is, if I can pull it up here so I can go over it with everyone. Let me see. Book has a lot of good stuff. All right. So on page 59 of the AA book is where you will find how it works and the steps. So the first step is we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So what that looks like for me, and I've done this step, is Number one, I've admitted that I'm powerless over alcohol, right? Because every time I drink, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough, as they say. So when I pick up that first drink, the allergy starts, and then the obsession of the craving starts, to where you want to continue drinking, and then you're kind of chasing that first high, I guess, from, drinking, or you want to keep steady on that level of that feeling of being intoxicated. And then the unmanageability that comes along with that is, like I said, not showing up for work, calling out, not showing up, when I'm supposed to take my kids to school or something. Sometimes I'll sleep in and I won't be there to take them to school, and my mom has to take them, so those types of things, and losing relationships, all of those things are unmanageability. And step 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So for me, my higher power is God. I'm a Christian. And it's not for everyone, though. Everyone does not believe in God, which is perfectly fine, but they talk about a higher power greater than ourselves, right? So that could be a doorknob for people, or that can be the meetings in AA, right? Because that gives them hope. And, some people are very spiritual and they believe that there is something out there that is bigger than themselves. So they want you to have, to not lean on your own and your own feeling of yourself, because you are not God, internally. So they want, it says to believe in a power greater than yourself that could restore you to sanity, because you need to lean on something else and have hope, and be able to talk, about these things that are internally bothering you, for example. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So when you find that whatever is your higher power and whatever that looks like for you, right? So every time that we have an issue that may rise up, within recovery or just within life itself, right? Your bills, your family, your job, pressure of life, all those things rise up. So what that talks about is giving your troubles over to what is your higher power, to kind of get it off your shoulders and leave it be to God or whatever it may be, so that you don't have to carry that. And then 4 step is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, which is where I'm at. And what that looks like is, the inventory of ourselves is what, we have done to individuals, where we are at, what is our why, and how are we going to do it. And so that's that step that I'm currently on right now.
What is your why?
My why is because, number one, I deserve all the good things in life, right? Because I love myself, and I deserve to have a future that means something to me. My why, of course, is my children. I want to show them how to be a good person in this world, how to keep them safe, and kind of teach them about the world and how to be young gentlemen. And my family, is what motivates me. But my why is because I have my own dreams and goals, for sure, that I want to reach, and that I know, I can get to.
It's amazing, Ashley, because you're incredibly articulate, and you present unbelievably well. So one would think that you are destined for success. And obviously the alcohol, the drugs, some lifestyle issues have been challenging for you. But I think that happens to a lot of people that are articulate and could, if they wanted to, be destined for success. So if you knew someone like you, male or female, articulate, intelligent, attractive, outgoing, personable, etc., but that found drugs and alcohol and it was harming them or even destroying them, what would you tell them?
So what I would tell somebody is, number one, at the end of the day, you have a choice. So we all know right and wrong, and we all can go left or right. So, there is a point where, a lot of things like self-worth come into play, depending on their situation, on where they're at, and there's a lot of baggage that they would say that people carry around. So number one, what I would say to them is, if you don't need to do it alone, right? Because we have these meetings in place in AA, NA, CA. We have a spot for you, for them to be able to get around sober support, and to get around some good girls, women who are in sobriety, or some guys who are in sobriety, to have that support if they are unable to go to treatment. Now, if they have a problem, right, and they have insurance, or they're able to get sponsored somewhere to go to treatment, I would highly suggest, if alcohol or drugs has become a problem for you, is to search out for a treatment program to get yourself into, because a lot of the reasons why we use, or why we use in general, is because, like I said, everything is about healing what's inside of you. So, healing whatever trauma it is, or whatever abandonment or neglect, or whatever it is that is heavy on their heart. It's time to get some healing. And then it's time to start separating yourself from drugs and alcohol. Because, if you can't separate them, your mind is not clear. And you're not truly who you are, inside of yourself. So I would definitely use the resources that are available, which is go to a meeting and get around some good, healthy, sober support, and start separating yourself from drugs and alcohol, or go to a program and fully take advantage of that to get some healing.
And you had several false starts, attempts where you went to rehab, or you tried to go sober and it didn't work out. If this person that you were talking to said they could do it on their own, could moderate, could do some drugs and some alcohol, but could keep it under control, what would you tell them?
So like for me, I had a huge problem with the fact that I wanted to be normal, right? I wanted to be able to only have a couple of drinks, or be able to use, randomly with my friends. And, maybe I could do that sometimes, where I could successfully only have a couple of drinks, go to dinner with my friends, do the classy thing, or the gentleman thing if they were a man, go back home and do that. But eventually what happens is, there will be a time where, like, say if you have a drink when you get home from work, right? But what about one weekend there becomes this event that's going to happen, or your friends invite you to go out to a club and stuff. And then, those 2 drinks become 4, 6, 8, 12, because you're out having a social event. Or sometimes, people start off, if they're drinking alone, we'll start off with a couple of drinks at home. But what if they become depressed one day, or have a really bad day at work, and then they have more than 4 or 5 drinks, then it becomes a problem, and there's some people who are functioning alcoholics and addicts, to where they use their, their source of whatever it looks like for them to get themselves outside of themselves. And then that becomes a problem because they're functioning. And some people may look at it like, oh, I don't have a problem because I'm not like him. I'm not like her. I didn't have a bad life growing up. I didn't get into trouble. I've never done that drug. But at the same time, you have to be aware that when it becomes a need or a necessity, or if it becomes a substance that you use to get out of yourself, or to relax and sedate yourself to not feel anymore, those are issues and are problems and can become worse.
Ashley Barbara, good luck.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So inspiring that you've made this move, that you've gone 30 plus days sober, and please check back with us, because we want to hear that you've gone 60 and 90 and 120 days sober, and then a couple of years sober. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you. Merry Christmas, Merry Holidays.
Stay with us. We're going to come back with another guest in just a minute.